Welcome to Eye on the Illini, folks. We've had technical difficulties that rival the difficulties of the defense, and there goes Ked. So it's an appropriate time. So
Aaron Henry's our technological coordinator.
doubles up. I'm gonna start with a very subject that's going to either make people angry or who knows. But I can't figure out, is this an Aaron Henry problem? Or when we watch the Illinois defense compared to other teams that are very highly ranked, is this a Illinois doesn't have the resources to invest in the team speed, in my opinion, that we're seeing from other sides? Or is it both? So, Brad, I'm going to let you take a cut. You might even have a third reason that's different than what I'm thinking of.
Well, I think both of those are true. I also think there's another side of it.
All right.
I think Brett Bielema believed that his defense could be better than this. I firmly believe that. That's why he didn't make as many changes in the portal. He has many players. He wants to be a developmental program. And I get it. Sometimes you do get a guy like Devin Witherspoon who becomes great. But most of the time you get guys who are 0 stars for a reason, or 1 star, 2 star, or whatever, because they're not good enough and they're not athletic enough. And that doesn't mean you can't make them, decent players.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they don't have enough talent. And you can't consistently hope that, evolves. And, you look where they've done some really good things. Obviously at quarterback, Luke Altmaier was a great get in the portal. But they got to do more on they get no pressure on the quarterback. They've got no team speed on defense. They can't cover guys. And of course they're asked to cover them, 6 or 7 seconds. I get that, but they just don't look like they're not in position to make the play most of the time. I mean, so it's really it's not good. I mean, this is a team at Washington that could not even move the ball at all against Michigan. I mean, they couldn't even they look terrible. And now they look like they're they look like Indiana in this one. So there's something. Here's what I know, and we can come up with a lot of different reasons. I think you're going to have to adjust. We've seen that even at Clemson. Dabo Swinney wants to be a developmental program and do all these things, not use the portal. I just think you have to in today's day and age if you want to be successful. And the other thing is that this team is it's pretty clear that something isn't working. And you can say it's the players, you can say it's the coaches, but it's all, at the end of the day, the coaches have to be accountable for what happens. I mean, because you can't fire the players. Right? You can't.
Well, so today the players fire you by just going on somewhere else.
That is true. And they just go somewhere else. So it's, I don't know. I mean, and they have to make some changes. It has to be better defensively. What was they at one point on third down? They were like 9 of 10 or something like that, or 10 of 11. I mean, it's just insane. And the scary part is they had 24 first downs. They didn't have to go to third down most of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, what'd you force? You forced 2 punts and you roughed one of them, right? So the whole day. So not great.
Well, I'm going to start with a comment that I see on Twitter from my colleagues. Illinois coach Brett Bielema on defense. If I have to get more involved, I will. I hate to say this. Everybody knows I like the guy. This should have happened 3-4 weeks ago because the Big Ten just lost an opportunity to have another team in the college football playoffs because I don't think Washington is going to beat Oregon. So now you're only going to have Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon in the college playoffs because Illinois didn't get it done. I don't know. I don't have the right answers either. But I'm going to tell you, this was a missed opportunity. You brought back 16 of 22 starters. You brought back one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I don't blame Luke for anything. Any of those picks, one of them hit the shoulder pad. You catch the ball with your hands. I mean, the other one, he threw to Hank Beatty, the last one. Unfortunately, everybody in the country knows he's our go-to guy. And Mike and I talked about it before you got on the air, Brad. I'm going to tell you another go-to guy, and I'm not saying this because he went to the same high school I did. Cole Rusk is a weapon. He was extremely well. He played extremely well in the fourth quarter against Ohio State. He doesn't drop balls. Everything was thrown to him coming into today's game. I don't remember what it is today. They attempted 12 passes at him, and he's caught 10 of them. Start throwing the ball to him because he's really a receiver. And I told you guys that watching him play in high school. Defensively, going back to defense, I don't know. This team is not complete. I feel bad because the offense have carried this team the whole season. And when you sit here and watch, because they don't get pressure, and they're like, the screen pass killed them because they don't either. I don't know if it's the speed. I don't know. I know everybody's frustrated, and I know when fans talk and people with money start to complain, you know what typically happens because people are frustrated. This was a lost opportunity this year to get to the college playoffs.
It's an interesting thing because I look at this team, and defensively, the linebackers are a step slow and they're small. That's generally a combination you don't like to put together. Defensive backs are young, but they definitely are not man-to-man capable right now because Aaron Henry would be playing man-to-man if he could. And we're not seeing much of a pass rush at all, even from Gabe. Now he can, we can look at it as Gabe being double teamed, et cetera, but there's a lot of issues on the defensive side. And I'll tell you one thing I was looking at going through the stat sheet. Washington was 9 for 12 on third downs and beat Illinois by 17. Illinois was 9 for 12 on third down. What would have happened if the Illinois offense wouldn't have played as well as they did? This could have been a huge, huge loss. And I go back to it again. I know you guys, you guys don't like it when I do this because you guys are more of the recruiting gurus than I am. But in today's world, I'm a salesman, and you gotta be able to close deals. And Brett Bielema can talk about family, and he can get a lot of guys. But until he's got a budget, there's just certain difference makers who go somewhere else. And I don't know, like Brad said, I don't know that you can depend on having a Devin Witherspoon fall into your lap very often. He may be a once in the history of Illinois football, which means we're done with it. So I just think on the recruiting trail, for example, there's 2 5-star, guys tight ends in Central Illinois who went to other schools. There's a 5-star tight end in the 2027 class who's not looking at Illinois. And I just think, when you're looking at Georgia, Texas, and Ohio State, they just live in a different rent zone. And I'm not saying that Illinois is ever going to spend that type of money, but I think they have to elevate if you want to get the team speed and size that's necessary to compete week in and week out. I don't know, Brad, am I just saying something that's too easy to figure out, or am I off?
Well, I think I think you're on the right track, but here's the thing. They want to pay the guys to return. That's great. But if you have guys to return that aren't good enough, then what's the point? I mean, you're paying guys to return who aren't good enough, and they get the loyalty and all this stuff. But if they're not good enough, they're not good enough. It's just that simple. And they're going to have Illinois is a prime example of us right now. They bid against themselves for these guys to return. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying you don't want guys to return, but I want guys who can play to return. I want, guys who are really good, not guys who probably aren't good enough and you gave up 1 million points last year too. And then we brought him back. I think the idea was that with continuity, we would suddenly be good. You know what I mean? Or better.
And that didn't work with Tim Beckman's continuity.
No, no, did not. So, in the portal area, you got to add guys. And if guy's not good enough, then get another guy.
Yeah. Ted?
Well, here's my thing. I'm going to tell you, Mike, you said that maybe Brad and I don't agree with you. I can't speak for Brad, but I do. This is not 15 years ago. The game has changed. All facets of the game is different now. You have to go out and do it. I said this on halftime. Yes, it's not my money, but Illinois is really loyal. I get it. But if you want to compete, do what Indiana's doing now, you got to do it. You got to pay money because they had a worse football program in Illinois, and they passed Illinois by. So I know, and it's not my money, and again, I feel bad for saying that. It's out there. But the school also has to want to take it. Illinois has great coaches. They do. I can't say that Aaron Henry, because he's going to take the blame because he's the head coach. There's some talent deficiencies there too. Let's call a spade a spade. Because if he could do man-to-man coverage, that's what kids like. When I talk to these recruits, that's what years ago, they want that. There's a reason that they can't do it. And I understand that. So the alternative is either
right now the opposition wants us to play man-to-man.
Yes,
very badly.
Yeah, because we're going to be punished by it. And it's hard and it's frustrating because I think, and I said this before, and you guys both know, I think one of the reasons why Illinois is competitive is because of the NIL transfer, the NFL market, NIL became an issue. Because Illinois wouldn't have had Luke Altmaier if you didn't have that. The reason you got him was because of that. So now they've upped the game. And like I did an interview with the woman, and she was talking about Shauna Green and the Illinois women's basketball coach. And here's what she said. You can have all the money in the world and facilities. And she says, everybody has that now. And she's right. Everybody has it. So how are you going to be different? Because we can talk about the facilities. I can ask the recruits that. I can ask about the education. All schools have that. How are you going to be different? And at the end of the day, it's going to be money and a relationship. Because some kids don't even care if you get along with them, as long as they get a bag. So that has to change.
That's the part. I mean, we see this in politics. We see this in every facet of American life. You know, if you produce, people are willing to look the other way. They don't really care. I did what he was going to say. I don't care if he broke 17 rules doing it or whatever. He did what he was going to say. And so you've got an opportunity where this is very transactional. So I think at some point you just get the best guys, and you just have to get used to that fact that money is the motivator. And then the other part that we see all the time is we hear about players or their families who go somewhere after being warned, hey man, maybe there's more money there, maybe there's not, but you're not going to like the atmosphere. And then they start making phone calls and looking for the transfer portal. You have to know what your son or daughter, what's important to them to find the right place. And for some people, it is money, and Illinois has to look at it and say, hey, we need to pressure a quarterback. So if Kedrick Prince is the best pass rusher on the market and he wants money, then we got to figure out how much money he wants. I'm not certain that there needs to be a lot more calculus than that.
That's true.
We need to have a quarterback named Pizza, and Mike would be they could get Mike he would get to the quarterback all the time.
Just like a buffet, baby.
He would just throw the buffet pizza. The quarterback is named Buffet. No, I think you make a good point. And this isn't to say that Brett hasn't raised the bar at Illinois. I mean, I don't want to be so negative. I mean, yeah, you're still 5-3. I mean, you went from complete suckation to be 5-3 and have a legit chance to make a New Year's Day bowl still. 8-9 wins is a good year at Illinois. But I think this year with the schedule and with the way that the way it worked out, they actually had a legitimate shot to do something that had never been done in Illinois, and that's make the college football playoff. And that next year is not going to be as good a year, right? I mean, we pretty much know that. So this was the year they had the opportunity, and you kind of just piss that away. So it's just that simple. And that's not to say he hasn't done a good job, but it's definitely, I think there's a lot of disappointment from Illini Nation.
He's done a great job to me. I remember the days when when they didn't have a chance. So you walk into today's game, the spread was 3. Before Brett Bielema would have got there, would have been a 14, 15-point spread. They're good. They're competitive. They're just not great. And you know what? Thank God for Luke Altmaier. If there's one player on that roster, I know there's 85 or 105, whatever, that I feel bad for. Here's a guy that's your top quarterback. He led the team in rushing as well with 48 yards. When you have outstanding running backs back there, hell, he probably could have threw the pass to himself and caught it. I mean, he does everything, and he gets hit. I feel bad because he came back to make Illinois special, and I just feel like some parts of the whole team let him down. I really do believe that.
And I'll take, just for debate's purpose, I'll take the other part is we're old enough to have lived through these days. we watched the days that Illinois won 10 games and then the next year, struggled to bring it home when we thought it was going to be 2 10-win seasons in a row. This Illinois team will probably go 8-4 or 9-3. If you would have told every single person posting on here that Illinois was going to be 9-3 this year, I don't know too many people who would have said, "Screw that! I don't care about this season." So I think Bielema has turned things around quite a bit. Now it's just a matter of trying to figure out what you do a little differently or what you do a little better to get better results. And ultimately, I guess you can look at this as a missed opportunity. Certainly there are things you could have done differently. You don't know if they would have worked out better. But the fact of the matter is, Indiana's pouring. I read something the other day where somebody alleged Indiana has $35 million into this year's football team. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know that Illinois, the most I've ever read Illinois' got in this season's 9. I looked at what like Iowa took apart Minnesota. There's a lot of good coaches and good teams, and like you guys have said, Illinois is going to have to figure out how you differentiate. And I guess I don't mind paying, studs to stick around, but you do have to figure out, how you get difference makers. And I don't know if you can play college football today and be successful without being able to chase down a quarterback a couple times a game when you really need to.
He was never in danger. I mean, I'm talking. I was sitting here. No, I'm not going to say that because I don't want to embarrass myself. I just don't understand how he didn't get touched. His hair probably looks the same as it did before he put the helmet on today. It's just a bad look. And I'm reading all these comments, and I feel bad because I know what typically happens when people complain, because the few people that are donating money, they see the same thing. They see an opportunity that had, where you go on the road and you give up 42 points or whatever point, I don't know how many points Washington scored today, and then you get 25, and because you can't get stops. I knew when Illinois got their last touchdown, I'm sitting there watching the game with friends, and they're like, you know what? Here it goes. I'm guarantee you, they're going to march the ball right down the field, and they're going to score again. And then when I see the smirk on gosh, I'm having a brain cramp right now. Former defensive coordinator who's at Washington.
Ryan.
Ryan Walters. It frustrates me. It really does, because I do think he's a good defensive coordinator. Don't get me wrong. But I think on all those blitz called on Luke Altmaier, I think he handled it really, really well. But you guys talk about next year. You don't spend money next year. It could be a long season. I think there's some talent, but it's young talent.
Well, and one thing I'm going to throw in here, because I do like this. Like, Brett is no Signetti. I'm going to tell you right now, anybody who listened to Brad and I on the Sports Spectacular, when Signetti got hired, we were like, watch this guy. And then the first person on this was Matt Stevens, was the one who predicted that Signetti was, when he came in and was talking big, Matt said he will go ahead and he will prove everybody wrong based on, everybody said, he's talking too big. So we were some of the first people to talk about how good Signetti is. I don't know right now in the country if there's more than 2 or 3 guys who are better coaches than Signetti. And the ones who are listed above him, like Ryan Day, I don't know. I would tend to bet that if Signetti if you switched him and Ryan Day, I guarantee you Signetti would do better at Ohio State and Ryan Day wouldn't do as good at Indiana. So I don't know that if you're going to compare everybody and say they're not as good as Signetti, I think you're just going to be depressed because there aren't a lot that are as good as him right now. And the other thing is Signetti put in his contract that his assistant pool has to be in the top, I believe it was top 5 in the country. So he's put a ton of money into that. And so, and so he's got a differential advantage there, which again, just points to how smart he is. But if you're gonna compare every coach to Signetti, then yeah, we might as well go down to 2 or 3 guys, and now we're done with that discussion. So, Bielema is a coach with a long track record who's pretty good, and so if somebody thinks that Bielema is a mediocre coach, I guess I'd look over the course of his years and probably say not, especially when you look at where Illinois was when he got here.
Yeah, I mean he's been better. I mean the level has been raised. But it's still not where you want to be. And
right.
The thing is, we've said this before, though. We said, somebody's going to make a bowl game every year, and everybody will say when Illinois is 1-10 and 1-11 and 0-12 and 3-9, everybody's like, if they just get to a bowl game every year, I'd be happy. And then you get to a bowl game every year, and it's like, well, no, I want more. And that's just the way it works. And it's part of the whole fandom thing. But now, it was like Brad Underwood's just supposed to make the NCAA tournament. Well, he makes the NCAA tournament. Well, now he's got to win this. Well, now he hasn't gone to a Final Four. You always want higher. If you're not winning the national title, it's not good enough, and I get it. But I think Illinois has to figure out a way to. I think that what disappoints me is that this was the opportunity. I mean, this was a year. I mean, they'll have other years when it works out, but this was a year you got to. When you had an opportunity to go 10-2. It with just like playing well defensively. If your defense was solid, I really think this team had a chance to go 10-2. And the defense has been, without it's been bad. I mean, they're one of the worst teams in the country at third down, right? I mean, what are they? 114th or something like that on third down? It's some crazy number. It's wildly bad. So, that I think that's the disappointing thing. But that doesn't mean you can't still have a good year. And if you're 8-4, 9-3, I still think that's a good year for Illinois football. It's just not the year that we thought they could have.
Kid?
Well, I don't. Well, to be honest with you, you're right, Brad. We don't. It's not what we thought. We can pretend that we're asking for more because you're right. I understand why fans want more because you see the success and what they had last year. And I thought going into the season the schedule was a little bit tougher. And I'm going to tell you. If people think that Maryland's going to roll over and play there, they're not either. Northwestern's not. They need to win 9 games this year would be great. It really and truly would be because then they have an opportunity to win 10 games again. And if truth be told, yes, it's nice to be in the college playoffs. It's nice for all the media attention. It's great for your program. But at the end of the day, guys, they've given up 42 points against Washington, 40-something against Ohio State, and 50, 60-something against Indiana. Do you really want to be in the college playoffs? Do you really want to go and be on national TV knowing the fact that if you got to play Miami or somebody who doesn't give a rat's because you're in the Big Ten and they roll up 75 points? We're complaining about the defense. For 45 minutes, that's what we've talked about. We haven't been on the air for 45 minutes. But my point is,
it just seems like 45 minutes.
We're complaining
it's
about
like that game seemed like 6 hours. But yes, no, I would want to be in that college football playoff. Regardless, I mean, even if that's like saying, I don't want to be in the NCAA tournament because we're going to get routed the first game. I mean, I'm in. I want to be in, and you don't know what's going to happen. Their team's quarterback Illinois needs somebody's quarterback to get hurt for them to have a chance, I think. But maybe also all the offensive linemen and the running backs and wide receivers too. But yeah, I mean, I want to be in there because you're talked about so much. It helps with recruiting. You're in there. Look at Indiana. I mean, just getting in last year, they weren't ready yet last year, clearly, but they are this year. It looks like. So, yeah, I want to. But again, that can't be that's got to be the end goal. I'm just not sure they're there yet. But they're just not. We've seen that they're not at the level they need to be from a talent standpoint, or I think from a coaching standpoint either.
Yeah, I think ultimately you've got a chance where for the coaches they probably feel like the goalposts get changed because they're probably looking at it'd be interesting to see if you could get into a coaches meeting be a fly on the wall what their goal was for the year. I'm assuming they want CFP, but you're also that also means you've got a schedule that you got to get 10 wins out of, which isn't easy. Especially with some of the something you play Duke and you throw.
I got to address. Somebody said after all hype and spin to now say 8-4 is a good year is frustrating. Was all the hype just no? Here's the thing: I predicted 8-4 before the season,
and I predicted 9-3.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, we predict this is what we thought would happen. You just have opportunity. Doesn't mean we thought it was going to happen. We wanted it to happen, but yeah, I think that sometimes we get caught up in like That's not. Could they have won this game today? Does anyone think they couldn't beat Washington? I mean, I think they could. Especially the Washington that played last weekend. I mean, Washington was bad last weekend. They had a rough day, but the hard part is they're not going to have 2 games in a row, and so I think that's just this is part of that thing, and we gotta everyone wants more, but again, you have to remember where you were when you started. And I'm not a big fire the coach guy, but you also have to make you're gonna have to make some changes. You can't keep rolling the same thing out there and giving up just massive amounts of yards and massive amounts of points every single game and expect people to be, oh, it's okay because, it's good. No, you got to make changes.
Yeah, and what those are, I don't know. I mean, they gave up 450 yards today. We know, what was it, close to 500 or 600 against Indiana. I don't know what they gave up against Ohio State. I don't think Ohio State is a great offensive team. I think they're good, but you're right. I mean, there was a few people were saying, well, okay, you know what? They're giving up chunk plays, but they're not giving up a bunch of points. Yes, they are. And you have to be able to get off the field. I mean, let me ask you guys, do you really feel confident if the game was on the line that they had to get a stop in any game this season? Because I haven't. And I don't mean this in a bad way, because I talk to these players, I talk to their parents, and I love the coaches. But you saw what Penn State did. Okay, they're not going to sit there and allow this to continue to happen because Illinois wants to take the next step. I know, and you both know, you've been around the media long enough, both of you. Josh Whitman's trying to win championships. And this was, I think, the offense, they have a championship offense. Defensively, I can't say that, and I feel bad. I truly feel bad for saying that, especially just in this day and age, but it's not.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of it is when they think guys are going to get better, because you saw, like, especially in Bielema's first year or two, you could see guys getting better each game. Like, people look at Kirby going to the Lions and Kirby Joseph, and people forget that he damn near made All-American in his first year playing defensive back. And maybe you start getting a little bit of a false sense of how good guys can get. You see him in the offseason, you're like, well, Kirby looked like that in the offseason. There ain't many Kirby Josephs or something. I don't know. I've been disappointed probably mostly in this team by the defensive back play. I thought they were better than what they were. They, when you look at the recruitment, you look at their kids' films in high school, I thought they were a little better than what we got. And I don't know, at Illini guys, we've all been pretty concerned about the defensive line and linebacker recruiting, along with offensive line. We've actually said the O-line recruiting hasn't been good. So I thought the offensive line would be less effective than it has been, and I thought the defensive line was going to be even worse. What's really scared me is the defensive backs I thought might be something that could help out a little bit, and that has not been the case at all. I don't know where you're thinking on Brad, but if you look by just ratings and stuff, the defensive line and even surprisingly the offensive line recruiting hasn't been as good as what one would like to see.
No, there's no question. I think I agree with you. I thought that the defensive backfield would be better, but they haven't been, and now that doesn't mean I didn't expect them to be Alabama's defensive backfield or some, what I mean? Like, or whoever, Ohio State's defense, but they're just not, the whole defense just isn't at the level they need to be to win the way they want to win. And that's just the reality of it. You can say it's not enough talent. Okay. Well, who brings in the talent? Coaches, right? So, you've got to do a better job of whether it's evaluating talent, finding guys in the portal, filling holes, whatever, if you want to win at the level that they want to win at. And they didn't do it. Now, it's in what I find interesting is that I think that the coaches really thought they were better than they are. Clearly, you know what I mean? Yes. Like they clearly thought this defense was better than they are. I mean, they talked about them. And so if they think the defense is better than they are, there's one of two things. Either they're just really doing a poor job coaching them, or they aren't as talented as they led everyone to believe. I mean, The reality is, if you cover this football team, you never see a practice. You know what I mean? Like, rarely do you see anything.
Yeah.
You get 15 minutes. So you're just going by basically what these guys, you're going what these guys are telling you. And the coaches felt confident, and obviously they were mistaken.
Well, I'll tell you what, Mike, there's a comment from your friend St. Dominic. Signetti changed college football. People aren't going to accept losing. I mean, I'm not saying, I don't know, and I know Illinois is not going to either. Everybody's paying these coaches a lot of money. They're making changes. We talked about the donors. We've seen all of it. These people are not just going to sit there and think it's okay, because for every home football game has been a sellout this year. If you win games in Illinois, they will come. I didn't think I'd ever see this in Illinois football consistently. If they continue, if they would have won today, had a chance to go to college playoffs, it could have been negative 10 degrees. I think you will still see 55,000 people at Memorial Stadium. Excuse me. I don't know what the answer is, but I know Brad's going to be professional, and I know darn well we're never going to know about it. But like Brad said, changes philosophy, schemes, and I told you guys about 15 minutes ago, Brad said he has to get more involved. He mentioned that a few weeks ago. Maybe this time he will be more hands-on.
Well, and I think there's truth in this, that Signetti changed college football, because I don't think anybody can decide. Anybody can look at Signetti and even expect him to be able to do what he did. I think he totally rewrote what is possible for a program, but at the same time, he also set expectations, because if every school thinks they can hire a guy that's going to turn the program from the worst D1 program historically to number 2 in the country in 2 years, 99 out of 100 coaches are going to be unable to do that. And if you want to do the numbers on Signetti, he's the first ever, and college football has been played since the 1890s. So, you have to figure out expectations. And I think, I think some of the issues that go to me is, if I'm a college coach, and I don't have Bielema's understanding, but I'm going to build it a little bit differently. I'm going to go offensive line and defensive line, and then figure that'll give me the ability to maybe not be as fast or whatever, and because I've got great line play. And I think that's what Harbaugh tended to do. And he didn't do it by high rated, but he knew exactly what he wanted. And I just think that the surprisingest thing to me is the defensive line. I can understand maybe, but I was shocked that we haven't had more outstanding offensive line recruiting just with the name Brett Bielema. And the fact is I don't think there's a single college coach who has more offensive linemen in the NFL now that Nick Saban is retired. So that tells me that Bielema knew how to get guys developed, and he knew how to recruit them in that were good enough to play. So what has changed over the years? And that tells me that your style of recruiting has to change, and you probably have to be more transactional and put more money into, if you want a 5-star, like the Joker said, if you want to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs.
Well, I'm going to tell you guys this. I'm sitting here thinking about it. Aaron Henry was a defensive player. He learned a lot from Ryan Walters. I feel bad for saying this, and I know people are going to get mad at me, but I'm starting to think it's more 60-40 the players. I think if he had the players to pass rush, he would. He's not stupid. But like Brad mentioned, somebody's got to take the fall, and players can't fire themselves. Sure, they can leave, but I really think it's the lack of players. I think if they could go man to man, they really and truly would. Why wouldn't they? They know that's the staple. That's what kids like. When you talk to secondary players, that's what they like about Illinois. That's one of the things that they mention. I just think it's the lack of talent. That is one area of concern to me. And then we need another Gabe Akers on the other side. That's my thing. I don't think it's all Aaron. I don't think he's crazy enough, because if he was that bad defensively, you will see Brett saying things to him during the game. I don't see any of that stuff. I have seen him talk to Barry Lonnie, but it appears to be in a good way about certain things. But I really think it's less lack of players, and what that means, that goes back to what we talked about at the start of the podcast. You got to pay players, or not pay players, excuse me. You have to go out and get players, or high-quality players who want to be here. Because what my selling pitch would be, why go to Ohio State or Oregon to sit on the bench when you're a 4 or 5-star kid, when you can play the only way in the Big Ten and have a legitimate shot at going to the college playoffs? Because they did have that opportunity.
Yeah, Brad, I know you got to run now. Any final thoughts before you cut loose?
No, I think we've kind of beat the defense to death, just like Washington did. So, I think there's not much more you can say. They have to be better on that side of the football to have an opportunity to win, which is weird because it's kind of Brett Bielema's thing. Want to run the football, play defense, all this stuff. It just hasn't. It's not at the level that it needs to be, and they're going to have to figure out why that is, and how they fix it. I don't know. That's about all you can say. I mean, basketball team lost today, but it's a practice game, so it doesn't really matter. I guess we can talk about that.
There's some encouraging things with that, though. I mean, if people want to know what actually happened, this is one of those times you want to go to the message board, because I have a really good friend in Florida who gave me the actual statistics and how the game went. Illinois lost by 10, and arguably one of the guys who could be the leading scorer did not play. So that says a lot, I think. And I think one of the guys everybody talked about last week, one of those freshmen, and people thought it was a fluke. Looking at what I saw today and what I heard today, that was not. So if you want to know what actually happened, go to Illini Guys and you read the scrimmage report, and it's right there on top.
Yeah, he's speaking about the message boards back there. We talk about all the time. When you're with Illini Guys, you can get $99 a year, but you also get access to the message boards besides all the articles. Brad, did you have anything that you wanted to speak on of the game? Anything that jumped out at you?
The basketball game, I would say that the thing that is interesting is that you saw an older team with a lot of guys returning, and they brought in some guys in the portal, older team. So it was interesting to see how, that some of the freshmen, you could see them, they played well, is what I'm told. And some of the freshmen had really good moments, but also had some moments when they struggled with the physicality, they struggled with these things. So I think that's a great progression, though. You can see they went from Illinois State, where things were pretty easy overall. Now they're playing Florida. And the reason they wanted to play a team like Florida was so that they're ready to go. Because remember, they have Texas Tech coming up in about 2 weeks. So November 11th, I believe. So they wanted to see something a little bit harder than the Jackson States and Illinois States, and before they get to that Texas Tech game in Chicago or in Champaign on November 11th.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one. We'll have some coverage of that as well. I actually am talking to a guy who covers Texas Tech later in the week, so that should be a lot of fun. Yeah, I think the basketball program is interesting, and I just wish the Illinois would pass a law that says that the Illinois basketball team can actually all practice together in the preseason. That's something that has to happen. So thanks for coming on, Brad. We appreciate that. I know that you're in the schedule. And I will tell you that it's an interesting time here, and so I see people out there, who are frustrated, and I get it. I thought a CFP berth would be awesome this season, but sometimes these things just aren't going to happen. But I know that you have to win to stack classes, which I think somebody talked about, and it does take time. And I think, again, to me, the biggest thing is you have to figure out now. Indiana has just essentially went nuke and brought out the big guns with hiring a very, very good coach, and then giving him money that no Indiana football coach has ever had before, and then giving him the not just on players, but to hire the assistant coaches. And then the other part I think that's really interesting about what Cignetti's doing is I give him more of a look. I put him more in the category of Jimmy Johnson, because what he's done that I think is so smart is he was down at James Madison, and he knows those players at that level, and he knows which ones could play at the Big Ten because he is a pretty good talent scout. And you'll see him, he's getting some guys for pennies on the dollars, which then allows him to bring in blazing wide receivers, pay a little more for him, get the Mendoza, brothers. And all of a sudden now you're cooking with gas. So you're not going to see me throw any rocks at him. But I do think that, the Iowas, the Wisconsins, the Illinois, Minnesota, Michigan States, who have thought like, hey, we're just competing to get right below that threshold of Michigan and Ohio State, Penn State, maybe USC, and obviously Oregon. Now all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, it's going to cost a hell of a lot more to stay at that level. And so those teams are going to have to figure out what they're going to do. And it also goes to show you, Michigan got one billionaire to pay for Underwood. And, Cuban started dropping money on the football team. Illinois has to figure that out. And, and you can Google as well as I can, billionaire Illinois alumni. There's quite a few of them. And so if you happen to make one of them mad, you better figure out how you're going to make them happy and see if you can get him to compete, put his dollars down too. It's a high cost proposition to be good nowadays in college sports. I don't know how long this model can stay. Even Campbell, the guy who put in all the money for Texas Tech, has said, like, I don't know, I'm going to do this much more than 2 or 3 years. So, you better figure out what you're doing. And then if you do have dead weight, and if Aaron Henry isn't good enough, then you need to make changes because your competitors will take advantage of weak links. And so Bielema is going to have to look at that with a sharp eye. He knows football. He's a pretty good coach. He does more with less. Now he's going to have to figure out, how do I have to be better at that. And maybe he goes to Josh Whitman and says, I need more money for my assistant pool. That's the interesting thing on what Signetti did is he made the next 2 or 3 years really, pay. There'll be a lot of coordinators who get more money because Signetti got more money at Indiana and the ripple effect. Ked?
Well, I think Brad Sturdy said it best before he got off the air. Brad Bielema has done a wonderful job of developing players. It's great, but the game has changed, and I give him credit because I think he's adapted well. I know back in the day, Brett was a guy that just ran the ball. He's proven that he'll throw the ball. He doesn't seem to be upset about that. I hope and pray that he gets into his mindset. I got to be aggressive, not just worry about the players here. I got to go out because Illinois deserves this. The fans deserve it. He's such a good guy when it comes to his passion for the university, but it's not like it was before coach. And I'm sorry if you're listening to this. You got to go out and do something different because when I look at Indiana and I'm sitting here thinking, how in the hell did they do that in 2 years? Their receivers are physically big. Like Illinois' the biggest receiver is our tight end, Cole Rusk. The other schools, Indiana, Ohio State, Oregon, their receivers look like that. And then their tight end look like 40-year-old men. That's the difference. You got to go out. And that is the difference. Like, I can tell you right now, without throwing any names out there, Illinois lost a football recruit from the state of Illinois. And it leaked out this was all about money to that kid. All about money. Because why would you not want to stay home? He could have stayed in state. Illinois is a good program. They're on TV. They're winning. But in the end, money became an issue. And I was upset when I heard about it, but it's reality. It is the way it is. I mean, Brad Underwood mentioned 3 or 4 weeks ago, this 5-for-5 play thing. It really frustrated him because he didn't know who he could have. And some of these high-profile recruits want to know. They're worried about money. As soon as, the NCAA kind of made them think, hey, we're going to table this, we're not going to do it, Illinois gets the commitment the very next day. So it does affect recruiting. And, everybody has their own style. all three of those coaches on that I talk a lot about, Shauna Green and Brad Underwood and Brett Bielema, people were, being critical and worried about Shauna Green, not having anybody in 2026 class. I applaud her for not having anybody in that class. You know why? Because she's not going to over-recruit her players. You over-recruit the players, it sends the wrong message. So everybody's style is different. Football is a different animal than basketball. It's not the same. So I'm a firm believer in that. Everybody in the country who's an Illinois fan, they all want Aaron Henry fired. I understand that. I get it. But I still think he would be better, guys, if he had better talent. And like Brad said, it's their job to bring it in. And you're not, and I know they went out and they went to the JUCO ranks and they did some of that, but they have to get difference makers. You have, Mike, you and I said it a year ago when we watched Illinois lose to Oregon. The glaring difference was speed.
Yeah,
it was speed.
That was the difference, but that's also the difference between a $40 million roster and a $9 million roster. I've roaded my heat checks and Hail Marys this week that I would love to see when teams when networks do the score. I'd like to see number 1 Ohio State 35 points, number 2 Indiana 27 points. What I'd like to see is number 1 Ohio State and then 40.0 million. 35 points, and then Indiana, whatever million, because at least you'd get a little bit of an idea, one, how committed your school is to winning, and then two, there are some coaches who can do more than less, and as Matt rolls his eyes, I've never been one. I when Ryan Day wins a few more titles, I'll get on the Ryan Day bandwagon, but as it goes right now, the biggest he's got the biggest payroll, or he's certainly got the most talented roster for 5 out of the last 6 years. Should have won more than one national title. So again, there's a different set of things here, but and I know the Aaron Henry thing, this is obviously a decision that Brett Bielema is going to have to make, and I know there's a personal relationship there. I think Bielema probably is if he feels there's a need to change, I think he will. And I do think that guys, what Signetti's doing by raising his assistant pool the way he's got it puts a lot of pressure on guys throughout the Big Ten to figure out how they're going to get the best OC and DC and linebacker coach and offensive line coach that they can. And now they know that Indiana is going to be able to outbid them if they get into a bidding contest. So you're going to have to put on your big boy pants if you want to win in the Big Ten. So Matt, you're looking at out there. What was your takeaway from this game?
It's the first Rubicon game in 2 years where you can point to the defense and say they lost the football game for Illinois. I really feel that way. If you take all the losses in the 2024 season, all the losses from up to today in 2025, Illinois' record probably would have been the same if the defense had played 15 to 25% better. And today you can't say that. The defense plays better. Illinois probably Illinois probably wins the football game. So it's the first Rubicon game where this game definitively, there are ways in Brett Bielema's first year where you could have pointed to the offense and said, if they'd have played better, we would have won more football games. And so I think everybody kind of knows the connection I'm making there. So this is the first time where Illinois can point to one side of the ball and say, hey, your D-, sometimes F performance out there really cost us a result. Because and I've made the point before, I think Illinois would have been 5-2 coming into this game, no matter how if the defense had played 20% better, like against Ohio State or Indiana. I still think they probably would have lost those games. I don't think that's the case today. I think Illinois' defense really let them down. And the fact of the matter is that, I think Brett Bielema said it. He's going to have to figure out what he wants to do. And he said, I'm probably going to have to take more ownership in it. But then I asked him, are you going to call it? And he said, no. That's probably not on the table. I'm not going to do that. So
And let me throw in one comment here, Matt, about that, because I had a long talk with Lauren Tate, and look, Lauren, I respect the heck out of him. And I asked him about the coaches at Illinois, and one of the things that he talked about is how all the better coaches at Illinois in the past have been affiliated with one side of the ball or the other. Mike White had his offense. Makovic had his offense.
Oh, okay.
You had Turner with his offense. You had now I'm blanking. What's his name with the defense? I love you with the defense, but also God, right after Makovic. Why am I blanking on his name?
Oh, Lou Tepper?
Yeah, Lou Tepper, the defense. And the one thing he said about Bielema is he said, Bielema runs this the way you're really supposed to be a head coach, that you put it in the hands of your coordinators and you let them do that. And he goes, that's more like a head coach like you would see in the NFL, more of an executive leader. So I do think that's a little different. And so I wouldn't expect him to ever put hands on unless he actually dismissed somebody.
Yeah, but I think look, you're giving up 40 points a game.
Yeah, I agree.
So, you're at the point now where, like, if you're going to stand up there on Big Ten Media Day, which he has before, and said, hey, the 2021 defense was on me, and the 2022 defense was on me, and the 2023 defense was on me, and the 2024 defense was on me. I asked the question because I thought it was a viable option when he goes, hey, we got to figure out whether or not I got to get more hands-on or not. And we haven't made that decision yet. And then I just asked the follow-up of, well, are you going to call it? And he said, well, I do so much on game day, I don't think that that's a viable option. And I said, okay. It wasn't, but he didn't. I asked him that during Aaron Henry's first year in 2023, I think after the Kansas game. I asked him that on that Monday, and he looked at me and he said, I think that's the most ridiculous question I've ever been asked. So today I didn't get, that's the most ridiculous question I've ever been asked, but I did get that's probably not on the table. So I just don't know why we tend to do this for offensive guys a lot more. We tend to ask Sark right now if he's going to give up play calling duties. We tend to ask, like, Billy Napier, are you going to give up play calling duties? Like, I don't know why we can't ask it of defensive people. Like, are you going to take more responsibility on this if your defensive coordinator can't handle it? But I also think that, there are guys out there right now that Illinois is putting out on the field that, Brett Bielema says all the time, what are we asking our guys to do? Well, I think, like, look, and people are going to roll their eyes and get tired of this, but, like, these superstar no offer guys that Illinois puts out on the field, and now we put them up on a pedestal. We got to stop doing that. Like, we got to stop. I don't think Matt Bailey played terrible today, but we've done it with Matt Bailey before, and Matt Bailey's had some real stinker games this year. I don't think today was one of them, but he's had some real stinker games this year. We've done it with Matt Grusevich, and he's had some real stinker games, including today. Like, we've done it with Tanner Heckel, and he's had some real stinker games, including today. So if you don't have any offers, maybe it's not because you play 8-man football in Kansas. Maybe it's because you don't belong to be out there. And so we got to stop it with these stories. We got to stop it with this, PR campaign that Illinois, like, just regurgitating this PR campaign sometimes that Illinois wants to put out there that, they are so much better at evaluating talent than everybody else in the country. Sometimes stars matter.
And you know what? And the fact of the matter is that, there are certain groups that are good, but you can get a 1-star and maybe he's really a 3-star, but we talked about this earlier. There aren't many Devin Witherspoons. Cad, you're getting close to your time limit. Any final thoughts here? And Matt and I will bring it home.
Well, I agree with Matt to a certain degree. I think Matt Bailey has been very successful. It has nothing to do with the area that he's from. He's had good games and bad games. We can say that about everybody. We really and truly could. My big thing right now is, and Matt, you weren't privy to this because you went on the show earlier. We were talking about whether it's an Aaron Henry thing, if it's a player personnel thing. I got to be honest with you. The coach always takes the blame. They always do. But I really do think most of it is a talent standpoint. They're too smart guys. Brett may not have hands-on, and maybe he's not hands-on as much as we think, but he knows what's going on. You know that as well as I do. I just think the lack of talent, but they're not going to sit and say this player can't do this, this person can't do that. It's pretty obvious because there's no pass rush. Guys are open. They're giving up, 42 points to a Washington team today. And, they're giving up too many yards and numbers. And I just really think that Aaron Henry learned under Ryan Walters. He's been there, so he knows the schemes and what Brett likes and what they were successful. I'm not saying it's all players, but I do believe at some point in time they do have to step up, and you got to find some talented players. And some of these kids, and before I leave, some of these kids do have offers from, when I talk to a recruit, if they say to me they have an offer from Michigan and Ohio State or Oregon, that's a twofold statement. You can get an offer from Ohio State, Michigan, or Oregon, but if they never talk to you for 6 months, that means they don't want you.
It's not a committable. Yeah, it's not a committable offer.
No, it's not. It's just we're doing this. But if they want you, you're going to know the difference. And typically when I talk to a recruiter, if I write something or I post something about a kid, I ask that. Because some kids will say, no, I haven't really talked to him. You're right. It's not a committable offer, and it's not worth the time, the paper to put it on. So I just think from a talent standpoint, they need to get better on both sides of the ball. I'm not, because they're losing a lot next year. And we talked about money, Matt, before you got on. And, I don't want to say it's paying players, but you got to find better talent. If Indiana can do it, because Cignetti's doing it, and I'm going to tell you, he looks special doing it. So having said that, see you guys. Thank you for listening to me rant, and I agree with you, Matt, this time.
So ultimately you got a team here that's 5-3. If they can go close it down the stretch here, they could be a 9-3 team and have a chance to equal last year.
Sure.
But man, the offense has no room for error.
Nope.
Because the defense is not going to give them a lot of sport.
No, Luke said, we got Luke Altmaier after this game. He said it's really hard to play from behind. He's not –
and he's taking hits. My God, he took some hits.
He's not going to bus toss like the 11 and the 22 that are in the depth chart on defense. But he's like, it's pretty hard to play from behind. And look, this bunch was down 14-3 before they could probably blink. So, where I will differ with Ked is that, the game plan, like Gabe Yakas said it, hey, the game plan was to keep Williams in the pocket all day. It wasn't to pressure him. It wasn't to try to get aggressive with him. They felt like if they got aggressive with him and got out of their lane, it was going to go 20 yards vertically down the field with his legs. So they were going to keep him in the pocket and set the edge. But, if you don't think the game plan today was, to kind of keep everybody in front and create a pocket for Williams so he can't get out of it, and make him beat him with his arm. That was the game plan today, fellas. Everybody listening right now, that was the game plan. And that game plan got signed off on by the head football coach at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. So they told you –
he still got
you today they weren't going to sack. They weren't going to sack him.
Yeah, so, no, I'm with you there. But the frustrating part was when Williams would get free and there was no spy, and you're like, okay, how does this happen? When you watch him get a first down, and you're like, okay, if you're going to keep him back there, fine, but there's got to be a spy somewhere, other than Connor Stallion sitting in the sideline.
Yeah, it's because the guy that was supposed to do that didn't either A, do his job, or he got vertically up the field and got aggressive, and suddenly now, the whole thing broke down. So
yeah, I agree.
But the plan was not to, bring 6 and 7 people and aggressively go after him. They told you all week what the plan was.
And partially though, Matt, part of the reason was with his legs he could make you pay. But part of the other reason is Aaron Henry can't play man-to-man defense with this group.
You know what? That's from a schematic standpoint, Mike. This is what people get that's wrong. Okay, and that's I'm going to call BS on that.
Okay.
There are analytics people out there that say that Aaron Henry still plays more man coverage than anybody in the country, more than almost as anybody in the country. Where did he learn that from? He learned it from Walt. And so the idea of like they played man coverage, I think it was 86% of the time against Ohio State, Mike. I've seen the analytical data, and when you play man, sometimes you play off by like 6-7
Right,
yards.
exactly.
When you're playing man, and it looks like you're playing zone, but you're not. They did that a decent amount today because again, it's when they tell you, hey, we're trying to keep everything in front of us. That's called, hey, we don't want to get beat behind us, right?
And yet Denzel Boston goes for 153, right? Yeah,
right. Well, he does that because one, you've got a guy like Tanner Heckel who apparently just got allergic to contact all day, and that's not going to work. And then two, you're still playing man coverage, but you can't play press man like you could with Witherspoon and
right.
the three guys that got drafted in your secondary in 22. So you're kind of at the mercy of, hey, if we got to keep everything in front of us, make a tackle, and eventually get off the field on third down. Well, what were they, 9-11 on third down today? That's the recipe for what you saw, which is 42 points, and I think they had 7 drives and 6 of them ended in touchdowns.
Right.
So that was the formula today. They told you what they were going to do, and they're just not talented enough to get off the field on third down. They're not, and then they're not. And when when they do have, I think, enough talent to get off the field on 3rd and 18, or even a 3rd and 8, or a 3rd and 13,
then they pull a dumbass mistake.
Yeah, they don't. Then they trip over themselves by making a huge freaking mistake. So I think that's the frustration. I think the frustration, honestly, if I'm Brett Bielema, is I could call the defense. I mean, Ryan Walters and Aaron Henry have both said it's not like Brett Bielema would have to have like a Waffle House play sheet in front of him to call the defense. Walt and Henry have done it both on a note card. They don't have that complicated stuff. I've joked about it before. It's Buddy Ryan. Simple coverage. You know what I mean. And everybody on the 85 Bears knew what that was, right? And simple man coverage. And it wasn't difficult. But Walt called the 22 defense on a note card that he kept in his back pocket, because the call sheet was 4 or 5 calls, in a game. And it's not like Brett couldn't do it. It's just, if I do it and then we give up 42, then we've really got problems, because at that point, are you gonna, at the end of the year, are you gonna let Aaron Henry go when it might not be all on him? So I think that's the things that are going through Brett Bielema's mind before he gets on a plane for 4 hours and flies back to Champaign. So, but
yeah,
I mean, there's not a good option right now for Illinois, other than I do believe they are going to see 4 of the most anemic offenses in the Big Ten coming up here in November. And I've told people, when it looked like Aaron Henry's defense was performing to the 2024 level, I told people, hey, you're going to see this regression toward the mean when you play Rutgers, Wisconsin, Maryland, and Northwestern in November. Right now, I'm not entirely sure this defense isn't shell-shocked enough that they could, give up some yards and give up some points to Rutgers next week if they're not totally locked in. And then the other thing is that, look, I still fundamentally, and I kind of almost wish he was on here. I fundamentally disagree with Kedrick Prince that the playoff was the goal, or it was the standard here in 2025. I just fundamentally disagree with that. I think there are a lot of people that do as well. But you could lose the team right now because the playoffs are off the table. You're not going to the CFP, and you're not going to be ranked. I mean, I don't know how much that matters, but you're not going to be ranked, come Sunday afternoon. So, Luke Altmaier and Gabe Yakus both came in and said, hey, we're co-captains. We've got to rally this bunch and make them believe that we can have a very similar season that we had last year. But that kind of rings hollow when there were things on the table that seemed plausible. And now they're just not. If you could have guys going through the motions at this point, and that will lead to losses to teams like Rutgers or Maryland or Northwestern at the end of the year.
We've stated for a long time that this Illinois team is good enough to to win 9 or 10 games, and they're also good enough to be beat by anybody on the schedule.
Sure.
So it just depends, because anybody who thought the talent that Illinois had this year was overwhelming was either listening to people that aren't us or is delusional.
Yeah,
because they don't, the recruiting doesn't add up to that. And so again, I'm a simple person. To me, college football has been and has always been about the teams that could stockpile the most talent. And if you go to Pete Carroll's teams, they were more talented. They were unbelievable. If you went to Bear Bryant teams, they were more talented. Bud Wilkerson, Jimmy Johnson. I mean, I don't care who, and they've got to figure out. But they've got to figure out how to up. I mean, they need better line play. Clearly, if you want to succeed in the Big Ten, they need better defensive backs. They need to replace Luke Altmaier next year. So to me, it comes down to resources that you can leverage to get better players. And unfortunately, in today's world, now this may change, but in today's world, some of that is you got to look at it not as an expense, but as an investment. And the one thing that I've talked about earlier in the podcast that is that really showed me Cignetti is thinking ahead is when he gets Mark Cuban to invest in Indiana football for the first time ever. And that shows me a guy who understands where the bread's buttered and how you win. Any final points then? Because it seems like right now I feel like I'm in the twilight zone, because Illinois is now dependent upon outscoring the other team. A Brett Bielema team is going to be dependent upon its offense putting up 40 a game, but I don't know any other way around it right now.
No, I mean, I think, again, you got Luke Altmaier saying, hey, it's really hard to play from behind. And to its own credit, like I thought the offense did. When they made it 17-14, I was like, oh, wait a minute now. Like,
okay,
this could be going the other way.
Why did they not at the end of the first half? Why did they not use their timeouts and try to? Because you could have made it again 21-20, and at least you go in and you got a chance to come back out with the ball. And I would argue that David Alano is one of the top kickers in the Big Ten. So give him, you had a couple timeouts, give him a shot to knock one in.
Because you have the ball coming out of halftime, and the worst thing they wanted to do was Luke to throw a pick six to completely, because you don't have, like, I think, because you didn't have any of the momentum at that point, Mike, and I know it was very confusing to a lot of people. This place was rocking after they went down like 75 yards in like 50 seconds or whatever it was. They now have all the momentum. And the last thing you want to do right before you're going to get the ball again coming out of half is to give Washington a turnover so that they can get 3 points. Like that's the one thing he didn't want. I think they ran the draw play in the sense that if Aiden Lawfrey gets 15 yards on this draw play, which, I mean, they ran that on like 3rd and 2 once and got like 20 yards close to it. If that gets 10 to 15 yards, I am convinced that now we're going, like, you know what I mean? But this place was rocking. This place gets really, really loud. The last thing they wanted to do was Luke to throw a pick. This place gets even more jacked. And now you've just given Washington 3 points when all you had to do was sit on it. And Illinois would have basically been able to figure out a way to get into half down 3 or down 4, sorry. And then, you take the ball second half and you go down and you score and you're up 3 again. I mean, that's probably what they were thinking. They just didn't want to make a crucial error to give Washington 3 points. And that's why they did what they did. What I would tell you is I thought when Illinois came back and made it 17-14, it was a new ball game.
Yep.
And then the end of the half defense thing happened again. So
yes.
So again, I don't really know, like, what I don't know. Like I do think Illinois is in a position like they were in 2023 where they have to win shootouts. And I asked Gabe Yakus if it felt the same as 2023, where the defense just played completely like mystifyingly bad, even though they had a Johnny Newton and a Keith Randolph up front.
Yep.
Had all those guys. He said it feels different because the leadership is different, but the results are very, very similar. And so
with less talent too.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. But enough talent to stop Washington on 3rd and 8 and 3rd and 13 and 3rd and 18. That's where I want to draw the line, Mike. I think that Washington, they have enough talent so that Washington doesn't have to go, what were they, 9 of 11 on 3rd down?
They were both teams were 9 of 12. And thank God Illinois was 9 of 12.
I think Illinois at one point or Washington was one point at 9 of 11. I know one of those was on the drop that led to the 3 and out. So I don't know how Illinois ever stopped them on 3rd down. Like, so if you have 11 3rd down possibilities and you didn't stop them on any of them, Mike, they have enough talent to do that. That's where I want to draw the line. Do they have enough talent to be near the top of the Big Ten in defense? No, I don't believe they do, and I never believed they do, based on like the, accumulation of 5 years of recruiting classes from Brett Bielema, and then what they've done in the portal.
Well, and the sad thing, here's the thing, Mike,
I want to draw the line of this team. This team has enough talent to not be giving up 40 points a game, which is what they're doing.
Totally with you. So St. Dominic's is out here again. I'm delusional because I thought the talent was better than this. I don't think that's exactly what I was saying. What I'm saying is this team was, you could look at the schedule and literally outside of 2 teams, the other 10 games, Illinois could have went 8-2 because I just didn't think they were beating Ohio State. And now that I've seen Indiana, I don't think they're going to beat Indiana. So 8-2. But in theory, they also could have went 0-10 with those other games if they play badly. And then now the defense is playing really, really badly. And then here's an interesting one, Matt. You might have an idea on this.
Sure.
So how does Ferentz and Parker always have good D year in and year out when the bulk of their guys are 3 stars?
Because they play to their system and
they know what each position needs.
To quote Brett Bielema, I don't think Kirk Ferentz and Phil Parker asked their guys to do something that they can't do. And I seriously think Brett Bielema is saying that over and over again because he believes that there are certain guys, especially in their secondary, where they're asking them to do things that they just can't do. And that's a problem. But I don't think Phil Parker and Kirk Ferentz asked their guys, specifically Phil Parker, because Phil Parker is basically the defensive head coach at Iowa. Kirk Ferentz is a former offensive line coach. I mean, Phil Parker has never really, asked his defensive guys to do something they can't do, and then they go, but then Mike, then they go and they do have 4- and 5-star guys sometimes on their defense.
I agree. It was a good
look. This Illinois team, let's just be real about this. When the season kicked off, I believe this Illinois defense had 2 guys that were ready for the NFL, and they paid for them, Gabe Yakus and Xavier Scott. And you paid for that. You paid for that retention so they wouldn't go to the NFL, okay? And Gabe Yakus came in here today and said, look, I'm not playing to my capability. So there's one. The other one's hurt.
Right.
Probably not coming back.
And shouldn't have been on the field when he got hurt, which is the real frustrating thing about it.
Yeah, but that's not an Aaron Henry thing. That's a Brett Bielema thing.
Right.
Because he's done that before. So I'm not putting that on Aaron. You know what I mean? I mean, that's not even his position group. You know what I mean? Like Corey Parker controls the defensive backs technically, and Aaron only controls the safeties. So, but that's a Brett Bielema thing of I want my guys out there. He's done that before. He's done that on both sides of the ball before. So, I mean, we all there were games. Remember, there were games where last year we were what is Luke doing out there?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, come on. That's not an Aaron Henry thing. You can dogpile on Aaron right now as much as you want, and I'll just probably stand back and go, I'm like you say it all the time, Mike. I'm that pro wrestling referee that turns his back and just doesn't see. Like, if you want to dogpile on Aaron Henry right now, folks, I'll just turn my back and you can go. But he's working right now with a defense, I think, that probably has one NFL player on it in Gabe Yakas, and the rest of them are not.
Right.
So Iowa just has a system that works for guys that, that stay in the system for 3-4 years, and they just have a defensive system that works, and they don't ask their guys to do things that they can't do. So that's why it works. I mean, that's why PJ Fleck's defense works and holds Nebraska to 6 points. They have guys that, they ask them to do things, and they for the most part, in order to get to an 8-4 season, they pretty much do it. But if you're in the Kedrick Prince camp that this was playoff or bust or somewhere near that, like those are the two conclusions I have, Mike, is that one, how does this team in November react to, the ultimate goal of the CFP not being there anymore, because it's not there anymore. So what are we playing for now? That's on your co-captains, and that's on your leadership.
And that's that's also on the individual players, because
sure.
I will tell you, I don't care if I sit down and play a game of tiddlywinks, which I don't know how to play. I expect to win, and I hate losing, and I'm assuming there's plenty of players in that locker room are the same way.
Sure, and I'm not going to use the Q word. I'm not.
That's why I get it.
But don't sit there and think that Greg Schiano's not trying to have his signature win be in Champaign next week.
Oh, trust me, they're going to be a target. Yeah.
Yeah, don't think that Luke Fickell's not going to try to make Illinois his signature win in Madison when he's trying to drum up any kind of momentum whatsoever for next season that he's probably, from what I'm told, going to get. So that's what I'm talking about, is you've got guys like Mike Loxley and you got guys like Luke Fickell and Greg Schiano that's going to get his guys ready to play, because they need to drum up momentum. You're right. And Northwestern might need that win for bowl eligibility, right? So you've got a lot of teams in November that are going to be playing for something.
Yeah.
Illinois is going to be playing for something, but it's not for like what we all thought the high end of the mountain was going to be, right?
Hoped,
right.
Yes.
All hoped, the whole, that's gone now. And so I'm just telling you, it's still 18 to 24-year-olds out there. And if you take something away, you take something off the table in terms of like a goal, which it was a goal, a lofty one, but it was a goal. How's this team going to react? And I think we all have the ability to evaluate this coaching staff and this veteran leadership in 2025 for Illinois, if that's by how they do in November, right? And I think that's on the table. The second thing is that I'm very, very interested I think by Monday we're going to know, what's going to happen here, like with the defense. I mean, I will tell you, and I had to review it in my head, but we got Tony Peterson every week until he got fired in 2021. I don't suspect we're not going to see Aaron Henry on Monday afternoon, but is Brett Bielema going to walk up to the table and say, hey, look, Archie McDaniel's calling the plays, or Terrence Jameson's calling the plays, or I'm calling the plays? I don't think that's going to happen. I think he was pretty I got to give Brett a lot of credit. He did not look at me and go, look, you a-hole, like, why are you asking me that? That's ridiculous. His reaction was, hey, I think that's fair. Like, he didn't say it this way, but his tone was, hey, I think that's fair, and I'm going to tell you now why in my head I don't think that's the best option as a manager. And I respected that answer, because it was like, okay, sure, that's fine. But if you're going to ask Steve Sarkisian a week ago, like, why aren't you going to give up play calling duties? I had to ask Brett, are you going to do it? Like, you know what I mean? Because at some point, even like you talk about this, Mike, like all these guys are competitive. You know what? Like if you're Brett Bielema and you're standing there, you're watching this, you're like, I got to do something. Like if I got to do it myself, I'll do it myself. Kind of, he's type A that way. So it does not. He's never done that before in his career. He never did it at Wisconsin. He's probably not going to do it here, but I'm very, very interested into how this week's of preparation is going to go, because Illinois has got a lot of questions to figure out. And I don't know if by the time they get on this flight from Seattle back to Willard Airport, that they're going to have the answers. And I'm fascinated by like the answers that they come up with for this week's of preparation, because if you don't dot your I's and cross your T's, Rutgers can beat you in Champaign.
Hey, we've said it again. All four of these, you could lose 5.
So player motivation is going to be a big thing that I'm watching this week, and then what we're doing coaching wise and schematic wise on the defensive side of the ball is going to be a big thing I'm watching this week, because there's just way too many questions and not enough answers to those things right now that I think could be a potential problem as we enter November.
Yep. All right. Well, I do have one thing that I have to go over to make sure that people know. And this is something that is one of the companies that helps us bring this to you. And that is Delete Me. Makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online when surveillance and data breaches are often enough to make everybody vulnerable. Data brokers make a profit off of your data. Your data is a commodity. Anybody on the web can buy your private details. This can lead to things such as identity theft, phishing attempts, harassment. But now you can protect your privacy with Delete Me. And think about all the things that people can collect about you, and people are out there doing that and then selling it online. So New York Times has named Delete Me their top pick for data removal services. And of course, as somebody with an active online presence, privacy is important to me. And I have not ever been a victim of identity theft or harassment, doxing, but I know a couple people who have been. Delete Me can help. And they actually have an offer. Take control of your data and your private life by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for our listeners, get 20% off of your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/hit and use promo code HIT at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to join deleteme.com/hit and enter HIT at checkout. That's join deleteme.com/hit, code HIT at checkout.
For somebody who's had to have the FBI open my mail way back in the day when I was at another job in another region of the country, we love our friends at Delete Me. Way to go, guys.
Yes. And I think just to kind of that's good. A couple of things here real quick. I think St. Dominic's and we found something we agreed. I have my hopes higher this season, and so far they've been disappointed a little bit. We will see where the season closes out. And then did the Illini Hoops win or lose? They lost, I believe, 96-86. You can actually, if you're a member of Illini Guys, you can go to IlliniGuys.com, go into our message boards, our forums, and you can actually find a message where Ked does a pretty good breakdown of the game, as he has a close personal friend at Florida who was able to get us a nice report on what happened. So
on a day like today, Brad Underwood couldn't have gotten at least an exhibition win over the defending national champs to help me be a controller of our football boards I was hoping for a quiet football boards because everybody was going to be jacked over this exhibition win over the defending national champs.
Look, without Stojakovic, the lose by 10's pretty good, and Petrovic went out with a tweak, so they were down a couple guys. I think this Illinois team in basketball, I think it's going to take some time to develop because again, another off season with multiple players not being able to play. But I think this team fundamentally is really strong, and while they may not be there's no Terrence Shannon Superman.
Hey, it's not Halloween yet, Mike. We don't need to get into semantics of basketball yet. I was just asking for vibes. I was just asking for vibes right now because the vibes, when I go back and look at IlliniGuys.com, is probably not going to be very good. And guess what? When you read my column that this is this defense has got to figure something out, because all of your – look, Mike, you have heard me on this forum, this one right here, say that the Fire Aaron Henry thread is stupid. It's no longer stupid. Like, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not
we
saying
have just seen a reversal of colossal proportions.
Right.
Here,
it's not stupid anymore. And so, like, you know, this is the first game in which Illinois can go, man, one side of the ball played pretty darn well, enough to win.
Right.
And the other just didn't. Like, I mean, I got to do grades. Passing defense is an F. I mean, rushing defense is really going to be really close to an F. You know, and honestly, game management and when you had 2 weeks to prepare for this, is probably going to be an F. You got 2 weeks. Sometimes, Mike, that's a trope that I really hate. I'll get out on this. This is a trope that sometimes I really, really hate. But in this case, you had 2 weeks to prepare, and that's what you did. That's what you put out there, and that's a really, really awful way to spend your bye week if that's the best you could do. And so I think there's going to be a lot of long hours in the Smith Center trying to find answers to questions that might not be answerable right now. And that's the really scary part. And so, if you want to go on your Fire Aaron Henry rant, and you guys know who you are, and I love you to death on IlliniGuys.com, have at it, Haas. Like, I'm sitting here going, something's got to change with the defense. And, you know, the first person and the last person that probably knows that is the head football coach at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And he kind of said as much. Like, we've got to figure this out. The quote that's going to come back is going to be, you know, my colleague Jeremy Warner mentioned to him that Illinois averages giving up 40 points a game right now. And he looked at Jeremy and he goes, well, if you're giving up 40 points a game, that's not good. You know, something's got to change. And that's where we are now. And so you got a quarterback that's talking about playing from behind all the time. Boy, howdy. Luke Haltmeyer would probably love to play against this Illinois defense in an actual game. Like, what kind of numbers would he put up?
He might get a chance to do it in practice. Well, with that, folks, we have to. We're now ending the longest podcast we've ever had. Thank you so much for sitting through this and making it through. I think next week is going to tell us an awful lot. That Rutgers game, Illinois needs to win that and get and move forward with this. They still have an opportunity at a 9-3 season, and we do appreciate each and every one of you for coming on and listening and participating. What I would ask you to do, of course, if you want to join the Illini Guys, $99 a year gets you there, and you get the message board where you can argue with Matt and other people. If you like arguing in this in the YouTube chat, you'll love our message boards. I would ask you to go try that. And then, of course, anytime you can share our stuff on social media or send it over to a friend who's an Illini fan, we would greatly appreciate that as well. You can also follow the Eye on the Illini podcast and the Illini Guys Sports Spectacular podcast. With that, I will thank everyone for participating. Until next time, go Illini.